At the prenup meeting, my fiancé saw the $86,000 I had saved for my son. He barely spoke on the drive home. Then he placed the papers on the table and said, "You could erase my debt tomorrow." Colin and I were getting married in 4 months. I owned the modest house where my 8-year-old son, Evan, and I lived, while Colin owned half of a landscaping company with his cousin, Caleb. Neither of us was wealthy, but we both had things we wanted protected. I wanted the house to remain mine so Evan would always have a stable home. Colin wanted to protect his ownership in the company if our marriage ever ended. I hired Monica, a family law attorney, to prepare my side of the agreement. Colin had his own attorney review the documents so neither of us could later claim we had been pressured or misled. During the financial disclosure meeting, Monica went through my assets one at a time. My house, my retirement savings, a small emergency fund. Then she reached the investment account I had created for Evan. "The current value is approximately $86,000, she asked. "Yes." "And your son is listed as the beneficiary?" "Yes." Colin turned toward me. He didn't ask anything in the office. He just stared at the paperwork for several seconds before leaning back in his chair. For the rest of the meeting, I could feel him watching me. On the drive home, he barely spoke. I asked if something was wrong. "We'll talk at home," he said. Evan was staying with his father, Joel, that night. Joel and I had separated years earlier, but we had a stable co-parenting arrangement. He paid child support, took his parenting time seriously, and showed up for our son. The house felt unusually quiet when Colin and I walked inside. He placed the folder from the meeting on the kitchen table, opened it, and found the page showing the account balance. Then he tapped the number with his finger. "You have $86,000 sitting here?" "It isn't sitting there," I said. "It's invested." "For Evan." "Yes." "And you never thought to tell me?" I had told him about the money. 5 years earlier, before I met Colin, I bought a lottery ticket while stopping for groceries. After taxes, I received around $190,000. It wasn't enough to quit working forever, but it was enough to change the direction of my life. I paid off my student loans, replaced my unreliable car, put money toward the house, added to my retirement account, and invested roughly $78,000 for Evan. Over time, that account grew to a little more than $86,000. Colin knew I had once won money. He knew I had used it responsibly. What he didn't know was the current balance of every account. He had never asked. I had never asked for an exact breakdown of his company's debts either. "You told me you won some money years ago," he said. "You didn't tell me you still had almost $100,000. That account isn't part of my everyday finances. But it's legally yours. I control it, but it's for Evan." Colin stood and walked toward the sink. He looked through the window into the backyard, where he had proposed to me almost a year earlier. Then he asked, "So where do I fit into this?" I honestly didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "We're getting married. We're supposed to be building a future together, but you have all this money protected for one person. That person is my son. Don't twist my words." I repeated what you said. He turned around. "I'm not against Evan. You know how much I've done for him." That was true. Colin had been part of our lives for almost 3 years. I had waited months before introducing them because I didn't want Evan becoming attached to someone who might disappear. Once they met, Colin seemed to understand his place. He never tried to replace Joel. He attended soccer games, helped with school projects, and taught Evan how to ride a bicycle without training wheels. When Colin proposed, he involved Evan in choosing the ring. They came home from the mall whispering and acting suspicious every time I walked into the room. A week later, Colin proposed in our backyard while Evan stood behind him holding a crooked sign that said, "Please say yes." I did. Evan cheered louder than anyone. That memory was one of the reasons the conversation in the kitchen felt so wrong. "I know you care about him," I said. "That doesn't make the account shared money." Colin opened another page from the folder. His company owed approximately $24,000 for equipment and other business expenses. Colin had personally guaranteed part of the debt, meaning it could affect him directly if the company struggled. He and Caleb had been discussing expansion. They wanted newer equipment, 2 additional employees, and a chance to compete for larger commercial contracts. Colin had mentioned the possibility before, but he had made it sound like a long-term goal. Now he spoke as though the plan were ready to begin. "If we cleared the debt," he said, "the company could qualify for better financing." "What does that have to do with Evan's account?" "I'm explaining why this matters." "You want to use his money?" "I'm talking about using part of an asset to improve our future." "It isn't available." He said he wasn't asking to empty the account. He wanted to borrow enough to eliminate the business debt and create breathing room for the expansion. He also mentioned renovating the kitchen after the wedding. We had spoken casually about replacing the cabinets and improving the lighting. I thought it was something we would save toward over several years. How much are you talking about? I asked. He hesitated. Maybe 30,000. The answer came too easily. You already calculated it. I've been thinking about our options. You found out about the account a few hours ago. And I'm trying to make sense of it. You're trying to spend it. I don't want it for myself. It would pay your company's debt. The company supports our future. I told him the company existed before our marriage. The debt existed before our marriage. Evan's account existed before our marriage. Colin asked whether I would honestly watch him struggle while keeping tens of thousands of dollars untouched. I said I would continue paying my share of the household expenses. I would support him while the company recovered. I would make sacrifices for responsibilities that belonged to both of us. But I would not withdraw money I had reserved for my son. Colin laughed quietly. There was no humor in it. I need space, he said. He packed a bag and left. For the next 2 nights, he stayed with his older brother, Russell. During that time, I kept questioning myself. Maybe I should have explained the account before the meeting. Seeing the exact number on official paperwork may have made Colin feel blindsided. I understood why the surprise upset him. What I couldn't understand was how quickly his surprise became a financial proposal. The account was never meant to make Evan rich. I created it because I remembered being 19 and choosing between groceries and textbooks. I remembered signing loan documents without understanding how long that debt would follow me. I wanted Evan to have options when he became an adult. College, vocational training, a reliable car, help with a first home. Whatever made sense when the time came. I wasn't planning to hand him the money at 18 and let him waste it. On the second day, Colin's mother called me. Denise rarely contacted me without Colin involved, so I knew immediately why she was calling. She began gently. She said wedding planning placed pressure on strong couples and that arguments about money were normal. Then she said, a marriage can't work if one person keeps one foot outside it. I tightened my grip on the phone. What exactly did Colin tell you? He told me enough. Did he tell you the balance? There was a pause. I don't think the amount is the point. That meant yes. I told her the money was reserved for Evan and wasn't available for the company, the wedding, or the house. Denise sighed. She reminded me that Evan already had a father who supported him. Meanwhile, Colin had spent years building his company. He needs a wife who believes in him, she said. I do believe in him. Then why would you let him drown in debt when you can help? Because believing in someone doesn't mean giving them my child's future. It isn't legally your child's money. It belongs to you. That sentence stopped me. The legal structure of the account had been discussed during a private meeting. Colin had shared more than the general disagreement. I asked whether he had shown her the documents. She became defensive and said families discussed important matters. I ended the call. That evening, Colin texted me to say he was coming home with what he called a reasonable compromise. The word compromise made my stomach sink. When he arrived, he apologized for Denise contacting me. He said he hadn't asked her to interfere. I believed he probably hadn't directly told her to call. But he had given her enough information to argue his case. That financial disclosure was private, I said. She's my mother. I was upset. You could have talked to her without giving her the exact balance. He admitted he should have been more careful. Then he sat across from me and placed a handwritten proposal on the table. He wanted to borrow $30,000 from the account. $24,000 would clear the company's current debt. The remainder would provide operating cash while he and Caleb pursued larger contracts. Colin promised to repay the money over 5 years. He had estimated monthly payments and even included interest. You made a repayment schedule? I asked. I'm trying to show you I'm serious. When did you make this? At Russell's. So while I was trying to understand what happened between us, you were preparing a loan proposal. I was trying to solve the problem. The problem is that you think the account is available. He leaned forward. Why are you acting like I want to steal from him? I didn't say that. You don't have to. I asked what would happen if the company lost another client or needed an expensive repair. He said every business involved risk. I asked what would happen if we divorced before he repaid the money. His expression changed immediately. Do you hear yourself? Yes. We aren't even married yet, and you're already planning for us to fail. That is why people sign prenups. Colin pushed the proposal away. He said marriage required trust and shared sacrifice. I told him shared sacrifice did not mean transferring his pre-existing debt to an account I had created for Evan. He accused me of treating him like an outsider. I told him he was treating my boundary like an opening offer. The argument went in circles until I asked him the question I had been avoiding. When did you start assuming my money could fund the expansion? He didn't answer. When you talked about growing the company, did you already think I would help pay for it? I assumed we would make financial decisions together after we were married. That isn't an answer. Colin stood and began pacing. He said he had spent years building the company. It had survived slow seasons, equipment failures, and unreliable employees. They finally had a chance to compete for better contracts, and he didn't want to remain trapped because I was afraid to invest in our future. You're asking me to invest with money I already assigned to Evan's future. You assigned it. Nobody forced you. No. I chose to protect him. You're protecting him from problems he doesn't even have yet. That's what planning is. Colin stopped pacing. You know what I think? I didn't respond. I think you're going to raise a spoiled adult who believes his mother will always rescue him. The house went silent. Evan was upstairs. Joel had brought him home earlier that evening, and he was supposed to be getting ready for bed. I didn't know whether he had heard us. Colin saw my expression and lowered his voice. I didn't mean it like that. You called my son spoiled because I won't give you a savings. I said you could make him spoiled. That doesn't make it better. I looked toward the staircase. For the first time since Colin came home, I wasn't thinking about saving our relationship. I was thinking about what else he might say if I continued refusing him. I removed my engagement ring and placed it on the table. Colin stared at it. What are you doing? I'm ending this. You're ending our engagement because we argued about money? No. I'm ending it because you discovered my son had something you wanted, and your first response was to explain why you deserved part of it. I offered to repay it. That doesn't change what happened. So that's it? 3 years together and you're throwing everything away. We had shared birthdays, ordinary Sundays, grocery trips, school events, and quiet evenings after Evan went to sleep. Colin wasn't a stranger who had suddenly appeared asking for money. He was the man I planned to marry. That was why it hurt. I came back with a responsible plan, he said. You came back assuming my answer could change. That's how adults resolve disagreements. Not every boundary is negotiable. Colin picked up the ring. Then he asked whether I had ever truly considered him part of my family. I did. He shook his head. No. It was always you and Evan, and everyone else had to stand outside. He packed more of his belongings and left. This time, I didn't ask when he was coming back. Evan appeared at the top of the stairs after the front door closed. Is Colin mad at me? That question hurt more than anything Colin had said. I went upstairs and sat beside him. No, none of this is your fault. Is he coming back? I told him Colin and I were having a serious disagreement and that he would be staying somewhere else. Then he asked whether the wedding was still happening. I don't think so. He lowered his head and cried. I held him, knowing the decision that protected his future was hurting him in the present. For the next week, my phone barely stopped. Denise sent messages about forgiveness. Russell said Colin had reacted badly because he felt excluded. Our mutual friend Tara told me every couple argued about money and that canceling a wedding after one fight was impulsive. Colin posted a vague message online about people who valued bank balances more than relationships. He didn't use my name, but enough people understood. I didn't respond publicly. Tara later asked me to meet her at a restaurant. I agreed because she had known both of us for years and I thought she might listen. Instead, she spent most of the conversation explaining Colin to me. She said the company was his identity. She said the debt had placed him under enormous pressure. Learning I had enough money to clear it must have made him feel that I didn't care whether he succeeded. I care whether he succeeds, I said. I just don't believe Evan should finance it. He offered to repay it. An offer isn't a guarantee. She asked whether I had considered counseling. I admitted I hadn't. Maybe that was the point where I acted too quickly. But I couldn't imagine sitting beside Colin while a therapist helped him understand that no meant no. When I returned home, I found a small box on the porch. Inside were some photographs, a spare key, and the crooked sign Evan had held during the proposal. Please say yes. I sat on the floor holding it until my legs went numb. 2 days later, Colin's younger sister, Megan, contacted me. She asked if we could meet privately. I was hesitant because every conversation with his family had become an attempt to change my mind. Megan promised she wasn't calling for him. We met at a quiet coffee shop. I'm sorry about my mother, she said. And I'm sorry about Colin. I asked what she meant. Megan said Colin had been discussing the company's expansion for months. Then she explained that he had also been telling Russell and Caleb that getting married would finally give him enough stability to take a major financial risk. What kind of stability? At first, I thought he meant combining household expenses. You own the house, so he wouldn't have to worry about rent or buying another property. That alone bothered me. Colin and I had discussed sharing household costs. I had never agreed that my owning the house meant he could redirect most of his income into the company. Megan looked down at her coffee. After the prenup meeting, he told Russell you had enough money to clear the debt and still have plenty left. Did he say I agreed? No. Did he say he was going to ask me? He said once you calmed down, you would understand it was the smart decision. The loan proposal hadn't been a desperate attempt to resolve our disagreement. Colin believed my refusal was temporary. Megan said she had argued with him. She reminded him that the account was intended for Evan. Colin responded that Evan was only 8 and wouldn't need the money for years. By then, the company would have grown enough to replace it. That logic probably sounded reasonable to him. The account wasn't being used now. The company needed money now. He intended to repay it. But he had built a plan around my consent before he had it. Why are you telling me? I asked. Because everyone is acting like you ended the engagement over one bad sentence. You didn't. Before we left, Megan said something that stayed with me. Colin does love you. I think that's why everyone is confused. They believe loving you means he couldn't also be using the security you provided. I never believed our entire relationship was fake. Colin loved me. He may have loved Evan too. But he had also begun viewing my house and savings as resources that would make his ambitions easier. Both things could be true. That evening, Colin called. He said he missed me. He missed Evan. He hated waking up at Russell's apartment instead of our home. Then he apologized for what he had said about Evan. I asked whether he had told his family the account could clear his debt before I ever agreed. There was a long silence. Megan talked to you. That isn't an answer. I was trying to explain the situation. You told Russell I would understand after I calmed down. I thought you would. You didn't treat my answer as final. Because it didn't make sense to me. It didn't need to make sense to you. Colin accused Megan of interfering in something she didn't understand. I told him not to blame her for repeating his own words. He said he never planned to take the money without permission. I believed him. Colin wasn't trying to secretly transfer funds. He wanted me to agree. The problem was that he believed persistence would eventually turn my refusal into permission. I would never steal from you, he said. I know. Then why are you treating me like a criminal? I'm not. I'm treating you like someone I no longer trust. That was the moment his anger disappeared. He asked me to attend counseling. For a few seconds, I almost agreed. I missed him. Evan missed him. The invitations had already been ordered. Deposits had been paid. Our lives were connected in dozens of small ways. It would have been easier to believe this was one terrible argument. Then I imagined another disagreement after the wedding. Maybe next time it would be the house. Maybe Colin would want me to borrow against it to save the company. Every refusal could become proof that I didn't trust him, support him, or consider him family. I'm not going to counseling, I said. So you're giving up. I'm accepting what happened. He ended the call. A few days later, I met with Monica alone. I told her the engagement was over and asked how to protect the account more clearly. She explained several options. I moved part of the money into an education-focused account and added safeguards to the remainder so I could still help Evan with needs that might not qualify as education expenses. I also updated my estate documents. The wedding was officially canceled. I contacted vendors, lost some deposits, and returned the gifts that had already arrived. Every cancellation made the breakup feel more permanent. The venue coordinator asked whether I wanted to choose another date. I said no. When I told Evan, he cried again. He asked if he could still speak to Colin. I didn't know the right answer. Colin had been a caring adult in his life. Cutting contact without explanation felt cruel, but allowing regular contact might keep Evan hoping we would reconcile. I spoke to Joel about it. He listened without criticizing me. Then he said, "Whatever you decide, don't promise Evan something Colin may not continue." I told Colin he could have one phone call with Evan if he kept the conversation appropriate and didn't discuss our disagreement. I stayed nearby but gave Evan privacy. I heard him ask, "Are you leaving because I did something?" Colin answered immediately, "No, you did nothing wrong." After the call, Evan went to his room and shut the door. Colin sent me a message saying the conversation had destroyed him. It hurt me too. But pain alone wasn't a reason to rebuild something I no longer trusted. 4 months passed. Colin tried to reconcile twice. The first time, he arrived at the house without warning. I didn't let him inside because Evan was home, so we spoke on the porch. Colin said the business debt had made him feel like a failure. Seeing the investment account made the solution seem obvious, and he panicked when I refused. He admitted sharing private information with his family. He admitted treating my answer like a temporary reaction. Then he said he still believed married couples should take financial risks together. That honesty hurt, but it also confirmed the real problem. Our definitions of partnership were different. Colin believed marriage meant combining every available resource unless both people agreed otherwise. I believed certain responsibilities had to remain protected, especially where Evan was concerned. Neither of us could enter a marriage hoping the other would eventually surrender. The second time Colin contacted me, he offered to sign any agreement I wanted. He said he would waive any claim to the account and the house. He would accept separate finances. He would never ask for business money again. For 2 days, I considered it. Maybe losing us had changed him. But I couldn't forget that before there were consequences, he didn't believe his request was wrong. He believed my refusal was the problem. I declined. Colin's company did not collapse. The expansion was delayed. Colin and Caleb kept their old equipment longer than planned and lost the opportunity to pursue one large contract. Megan later told me they were paying the debt down through the company. That was probably how it should have happened from the beginning. Tara eventually apologized. She said Colin had told people I had hidden a fortune and refused to help while his company struggled. Once she understood the history of the account and what he had said about Evan, she admitted the situation was more complicated. Some people still believed I ended things too quickly. They reminded me that Colin had attended school events, helped with homework, and treated Evan like family. They thought counseling might have saved us. Sometimes I wondered whether they were right. Then I remembered the handwritten repayment plan and the certainty that I would eventually agree. The breakup wasn't about one angry sentence. It was about what happened after I said no. Evan took the separation hard. For several weeks, he stopped mentioning Colin. Then one evening, while I was preparing dinner, he asked whether Colin would attend his next soccer game. I turned off the stove. No, I don't think he will. Evan nodded. I miss him. I know. Do you miss him? Yes. He looked surprised. I told him missing someone didn't always mean bringing them back was the right choice. A month later, we were sitting in the backyard where Colin had proposed. The grass had grown uneven because I kept forgetting to schedule maintenance. Evan leaned against me. Are you lonely? Sometimes. Does that mean you made a mistake? The question caught me off guard. No, I said. Sometimes a decision can hurt and still be necessary. He looked toward the house. At least we still have our home. I held myself together until he went inside. Then I sat alone in the backyard and cried. I didn't feel victorious. I felt the loss of the future I thought we were building and the relief of knowing I had protected the promise I made to my son. The $86,000 is still reserved for Evan. Maybe Colin would have repaid every dollar. Maybe the company would have grown and our marriage would have been happy. I will never know. What I do know is that when I said no, the man I planned to marry treated my answer as a problem he could solve. So did I protect my son's future, or did I end a family over money that wasn't being used?